Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hi everyone and welcome to another weekly wrap up where I have 8 different romances to talk to you about today. And first off, just to address it, yes, I am sitting on the couch today. If you're new, maybe you haven't seen me do the couch sitting before, but for a while I was doing it pretty regularly. But I mean, I do prefer to film in front of my bookshelves on that side of the room. But the lighting just wasn't working with me today. I got a bit of a later start, and instead of fighting with the light nonstop, I just was like, you know what? Let's just film from the couch where the light can't ever like directly shine on this side. So it helps a little bit more. Anyway, at least for my state of mind. I know a lot of you don't care where I sit. I've had people say you like it, or I've had no one say they don't like it. But for me, it's just a different thing. But I mean, it certainly is more comfortable, so there's that. But it's mostly just I got a slow start. I've had quite a few migraines in the last couple weeks. My patrons know about this. And again, I had like the beginnings of one this morning and it just made me want to cry. But I took some meds, I took my time, I had a good breakfast, drank a lot of water and a little bit of caffeine, and I'm feeling good enough to film. So we're going to roll with it. All right. So yeah, like I said, we have 8 things to talk about, or 8 books to talk about, but let's start off with some shout outs real quick because we did have some new supporters. Well, I had some new supporters. Our channel had some new supporters this week, which is just so kind. Actually 2 different Rachels joined the same day, which gave me a bit of a chuckle. To my Patreon, we have Rachel N who joined. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much. And then we have Rachel from Kindles and Candles who also joined, who I've interacted with her a couple times on Instagram. So welcome so much to both of you. And then to the channel memberships, we had a Caitlin L who joined. So thank you all so much. It really means the world to me. I was having quite a trip the other day because I had something happen where the graphic that had all of my Patreon names on it just like disappeared off of my Canva. I don't know what the hell happened. I've been using the same one for a long time. It just disappeared. And I was getting so frustrated, but I was like, whatever, I'll just remake it and I'll make it in multiple places so that we're good to go. And in doing that, I, pulled up the names of everyone to start fresh. And just seeing how long some people have been supporting me was it's always just a really good reaffirmation of what I'm doing, that it is beneficial to people. Some people who've been supporting me, of course, for longer than I ever had a paid system, it just humbles me every time. So anyway, I always get sappy when we do this, but it's true. You guys, when your livelihood depends on other people's generosity, no matter how hard you work, you'll always feel like you don't deserve it in some aspect, because I know how hard it is to make $1 these days, or it's always hard, but to know that someone would give you some of their dollars because they like how you talk about books it's just always humbling and it's affirming, right? And whatever, small flack I get from people in my real life, which it's not much. Like I said, I have a very supportive family. But whenever there's that awkward moment of people being like, so what do you do? Like how, used to work at Microsoft and now you post on social media, they just don't understand it, right? That's not, again, I don't get shame for it, but I have, like, my grandparents just can't, truly, they don't shame me for it, but they're just like, okay, you're not in the poorhouse yet, we say, so it must work, but it's just hard for them to understand it, right? And some days I don't even understand it, how it can work, you know? So anyway, enough of that, as they say. Let us get into the books that I read this week, which is great. Okay, so first up, I finished up The Good Girl Effect by Sarah Kate. And yes, this is the first book in the Salacious Legacy series, which is super cool. I did have an ARC copy of this and an ALC, but then Casablanca also sent me a finished copy, which does have the artwork inside, which is beautiful. I love it so much. It's so sexy. But yeah, I did listen to the ALC, which has a full cast narration in duet style of Jason Clarke, Samantha Brentmore, CJ Bloom, Meg Sylvan, and Brandon Francis. And as we go through the series, I'm sure those other characters will continue to play their character, right? So the setup for this series, if you haven't heard yet, is that it is a second generation. That's where the legacy comes from. It's the second gen to the Salacious Players Club series, which I will say, as I have mentioned before, I think it's always interesting when stories that mostly revolve around like erotic romance get a second generation, because it's always... I always chuckle a little that I'm like, literally everybody met in a sex club and now their kids are in a sex club. I mean, and granted, we've skipped ahead many years now, so they're not like, it's not as weird as it sounds, but it is weird in concept when you think about it, of like, why is there a second generation for that? But Sarah Kate played a few fast and loose with a few things, and like Ronan, who was already, right, our Silver Fox daddy, he has not aged, though everyone else has. But the point why I bring up Ronan is that he's reached the point of wanting to retire, and he is leaving his club to the children of the Salacious players, and he leaves this letter to them, which I won't read the whole thing, but here is the premise of it, because we do have Jack St. Clair, who is the son of Eden from Madam, and he was already like her child, right? And then Eden was in Madam, that was at FFM, and so that throuple ends up having a couple of kids as well, but Jack was already Eden's son. And there are all these kids from everyone who haven't been getting along. Not all of them have gotten along lately. And we have Jack, who is actually a widower. His wife died to cancer. He's a single dad, and he wants to move back to the States and just try to make a good life for him and his daughter. But Ronan kind of throws a bit of a wrench in the plan. So what he ends up saying to them is that he's leaving the club to 6 of them. Okay, he's leaving the club to Julian, Amelia, Jack, Phoenix, Elizabeth, and Weston. And Ronan was partnered with Matthias Moreau, who is still around, but Matthias is agreeable to pass it on to the next generation too. And so what his thing is that he wants to bring these kids like back together. And so what he does is that each of them brings something special to the table, and he wants them to try for 1 year to make a go of it together. And if they can make a go of it together, then whoever they want to can be the one to take over, and everyone else can go their separate ways if they want to. But if they all 6 don't work together for it, then Matthias will take it over and probably sell it off to whoever he wants to or whatever. So he says, this isn't a punishment, it's an experiment. I watched your parents' club save lives, and I'm hoping this one will save yours. 1 year, that's all I ask. After the year is up, you can do what you want, but I'm begging you to give it a shot, find your family, and make this your home. So this is very like what appears to be almost a high-handed thing, but also he thinks it'll be for their own good type of thing. And what that means, though, is that Jack didn't want to keep doing this. And the club has kind of become kind of a stereotypical cheesy sex club. It's not as safe as it should be. It's not run as well as it should be. And if they want to make a go of it, they're going to need to fix that. They're going to need to work together to do that. Sorry there, my speaking voice isn't working. And so Jack doesn't really want to stay. As it said, he wants to go back to California and take his daughter there. But if any of the 6 wants to run the club, they all have to stay for that year. So Jack reluctantly agrees to stay and help. And he needs a nanny for his daughter. So then we have Camille, who she finds out about Jack in a very weird way. There is a small bookstore that she works at, and in one of the books, she finds this letter. And the letter was actually a love letter that Jack wrote to his deceased wife, which I was like, that is a very interesting way to start this story. And she just can't stop thinking about him, and she wants to know, not just him, like she isn't immediately just obsessed with Jack. She is so interested in this love story. She thinks it is so beautiful, and she's curious about this couple. Like, she's let her romanticism get away with her. And so on a day off, she actually takes a train to this town where it's from, because it has the address on it. And when she shows up there, she can't help herself. She goes and knocks on the door. And it happens that Phoenix, who is Jack's best friend, and she is the daughter of Hunter, Drake, and Isabel. And she is like best friends with Jack. And she's actually doing interviews for a nanny position for Jack's little girl. And that is what she thinks this woman is here for. And Camille doesn't really correct her. She ends up randomly getting interviewed for this job. And whatever, I'm taking too long to explain this. This is all the setup of this book. But I just wanted to explain how kind of wild the setup is for this. It's pretty crazy. But she ends up taking a chance on this and getting this job as the nanny for this little girl. And then she starts to be curious about Jack, who's this very broody, grumpy, doesn't spend enough time with his daughter. He's working on the club, but not really. And she also discovers that he's interested in shibari. He has a room in his house that's all that it's used for. And there's going to be a relationship between the two of them. So this ends up being the kind of story too, where like she becomes really curious about shibari, and he really likes to exert control over people. It helps him with his grief. It helps him to manage his feelings. And so she is like, I want you to teach me about it. And so they start having these lessons where he's like, this isn't going to turn sexual because you work for me, but at night after my daughter's asleep, you can come in and we'll do some different ties together and everything. So I love books that have shibari in them, actually. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But other than all of those things that I said, it's the typical like forbidden fruit, fall for the nanny type of thing. And I think it did a really beautiful job for the most part. I ended up giving this 4.5, rounded up to 4, or rounded up to 5, not rounded down to 4. And I thought it was a really great start to everything. This had some really moving moments in it. A few of the highlights for me was that Jack did deeply love his wife. There was no secret dissatisfaction. There was nothing to not love about her. And so it isn't that type of story where he needs to like get past her or anything. It's more of like they had a beautiful relationship, but he has so much life left, and he has their daughter still. And is he going to close himself off and be this lonely, grumpy widower for another 40 years, you know? And I love how Camille is not, you know, I mean, she is a bit worried that he could never love her the way that he loved his first wife, but she still is also very respectful of the memory of this woman too. So anyway, I ended up really enjoying this. The audiobook to me was absolutely stunner. Of course, the narration of Jason Clarke as a Dom is always gonna just light me up, because he just has the perfect growly guttural voice to do it, like very commanding and good. I will say the heroine with her French accent, the narration of her was pretty uneven. Like sometimes she was doing it really well, and other times it was just like do you have like sometimes it would sound Irish. I'm not even kidding. But that's all right. It didn't take me out of the story too much. I would just kind of laugh, and I'm like, yeah, it's difficult to maintain for a long time. So, okay, moving along here. The next one is pretty quick to talk about. I squeezed in a fan fiction. I've been doing really badly with my goal of reading at least a couple fan fictions every month because it's just been so overwhelming with other things I had going on. But I'd seen this one advertised in a Facebook group that I'm in, which I believe this group is called Dramini for Kindle is what it's called if you'd like to look it up. And it's so great because they share the links to these as well as the option to download for Kindle, like with the cover on it and everything, which is really cool. And I believe it's a public open group too. And I've downloaded a lot of Dramini lately from this group, which, you know, I should probably get to reading some of them would be smart. But I squeezed this one in. It was just novella length. And it was really fun. The premise is absolutely why I got it. So it's called Northern Exposure because it is a stranded in the wilderness one, okay? So it starts right in the middle of it where there has been some type of an issue. There was some type of a battle happening, not like battle, but like, I think they were trying to take in a dark wizard or something happened. And Hermione and Draco, I think he ended up grabbing her or she grabbed onto him when he like, what's it called? Sent himself away. It disapparated away. And they ended up, they don't know this, but I'll just tell you, they end up in like rural Alaska in the middle of everything. And lucky for them, Hermione has her beaded bag which happens to have, you know, some survival equipment in, like whether it's maybe left over from, you know, a time when she was traveling with Ron and Harry, I don't know, but she has like one sleeping bag and there's a little bit of, I think there was some food in there and everything, but that's all they have. And they don't have a wand either because I think one of theirs got broken and one of theirs got, left behind. So they're only able to do whatever magic they're able to do non-verbally. And even with like non-verbal magic, you're still supposed to have your wand. So they're pretty limited with any magic they can do either. So yeah, the two of them are co-workers and, you know, still kind of enemies left over from the war and everything. But overall, it was really a sweet one and it turned kind of spicy pretty quick, right? Because it was only novella, but it also was just really cute. So I squeezed that in right at the end of August, and I have in mind some I want to read in September, but I'm not even gonna count on it because there's just a lot going on, and Alchemized is coming the end of September. So yeah, I don't know. It's wild, y'all. It's wild. Okay, so then I got into September reads, and I got through quite a few so far in the last few days. So I read Off Limits Mogul by Scarlett Avery, and this was a new to me author. And this one was a billionaire, brothers, best friend, roommates, kind of like frenemies, like they've liked each other before, but now they just bicker all the time. It was Grumpy Sunshine. The hero is actually an ex-rapper, and the heroine's also gotten out of the music industry. She was in it for a while, and she has actually been away trying to re-find herself. She was actually staying at a monastery with her and a friend. And in the beginning of this book, the hero's friend tells him that his sister needs help getting back to the US, and also well, she gets back to the US, but she's lost everything. They had their bags stolen. They barely even had, like, they only had, like, their passports on them. Because if you're smart, you always keep your passport on you when you're traveling. Because something like this can happen. But she gets back to the US with her friend and, like, nothing else. And her brother works on film sets. I think he does the sound engineering or special effects. Something like that is what her brother does. So her brother's on location working. And so he reaches out to his friend and he's like, could you pick her up from the airport? And she doesn't have a place to stay because she's been on this like get get to know you, find yourself trip for quite a while, so she doesn't have a place to stay or anything. And so the hero, whose name is Reese and her name is Kira, he goes and picks her up. Now, the thing about these two, like I said, they're kind of like bickering grumpy sunshine. They've both had a thing for each other for a while that they've never admitted, because brother's best friend, because he's a lot older than her, actually. And when she was younger, she tried to make a move on him, and he turned her down because I believe she was only 17 or just was turning 18 or whatever. She'd made a move on him and he turned her down. And so for all this time, she's thought he didn't want her. And from his point of view, he's like, A, you were too young. B, you were my best friend's little sister. I would have been an absolute dickhead if I had let you and I do anything. But now she's living with him and things really get kind of heated up between the two of them. So this was really fun. I had the audio. It was duet narrated. J.F. Harding and Vivian LaRue, I believe. And yeah, it was really interesting too, because he is this like tatted up bad boy billionaire who, like we said, was famous. He was a one-hit wonder of a rapper. But he has a cool history because he became a rapper basically to spite people who thought he couldn't do it, basically, you know? And I have mad respect for that. So yeah, he's a really interesting character for sure. And bit demanding, bit dominant. They have a really hot relationship once it starts. I liked how it was handled when the brother finds out. So it was a really good one. I definitely will read more from Scarlett Avery for sure. I gave it a 4-star though, because of two reasons. One, this was too long. This, I believe, was over 400 pages for a contemporary romance, and you guys know how I feel about that. I will keep saying it. I don't care until authors learn to trim themselves down a bit, and I start seeing that, because this was too long. Also, the third act was very weird. Now, it wasn't a third act breakup. It was not. There was actually I'll tell you this because it's a content warning, so I'm going to tell you this. There is a type of medical incident that happens, okay? And it's a life-threatening incident. And then we skip ahead a few months until everybody is all better from this medical incident. And it just felt odd, right? Like, you guys know, I'm all about us not having to have a third act breakup or something like that. But to have this very serious thing happen and then to just have us like skip over all of the healing and all of the stuff that has to happen just felt like a weird choice, you know? Because I was like, well, why did we even have that happen? Like, what did it really do? Because our characters were already saying they loved each other beforehand. They were already like, you know, her brother already knew, people already knew. So it's not like this accident really caused them to do anything that they wouldn't have done without it. So then it was kind of like, what was the point? So yeah, it just felt odd. And mixed in with how long this was, I don't think it needed to happen at all, which was why I ended up giving it a 4. But it was still really good. I think a lot of people will enjoy this one. A billionaire romance, sexy couple together. Also, the hero has dyslexia. And what's cool is that's actually why he wanted to be a rapper. Because he was like, it's the toughest type of singing. And people always called him stupid and made him feel like he couldn't do it. And so he was like, not only am I going to do it, I'm going to do the hardest kind there is. So he's definitely a determined dude, and we like to see it. Okay, next up was Marchioness Overnight by Emmy West. And this was another ALC that I had. See, I was behind on a few ALCs and I had to pop them out. But this one was duet narrated and it was a historical, which I just absolutely loved. And so this was done by Timothy Campbell and Carolyn Morris. And it was from East House Productions, which is why Must Love Audio had it. If you don't know, Shane East, Must Love Audio was kind of set up by him and a few narrators and their production companies and everything. And so that's why there's usually a good amount of historicals we get to do for them, which I love. And so this one is a forced marriage. Also, a guy who was previously, I wouldn't say he was a bully, but he was previously an asshole to the heroine. And, yeah, it was, how do I say this? This was fun. So anyway, our heroine, her name is Honor, and her father has been missing in action, presumed dead in the war. And so her and her mother are both kind of grieving that. They're hoping for her father to return. And at the beginning of this book, our heroine is finally about to get engaged to a man. This man, he's no one of real importance, but our heroine has had trouble finding a husband because of something that our hero had said about her when she first debuted. She was wearing this certain type of dress, and he made fun of her, and it made her the butt of a lot of jokes. And to make it even worse, this hero was someone that she had a crush on and really admired him. And he just absolutely broke her. And so finally, she's about to be engaged. The man is literally there to propose to her. And who should stroll in but the man who broke her heart all those years ago and made her unmarriageable, basically, for a very long time. And his name is Evan, and he is a Marquess, and he is actually already married to her because he actually was serving in the war with her father. And when the father was injured, which he's not known to be dead yet, though Evan is quite worried that he might be. The father had him marry Honor by proxy in case he didn't survive. And Evan, as a man of honor, agreed to do that. Now, Evan doesn't remember that he said something horrible about Honor. He just knows now that he's a scarred man. He gets very much injured in the war himself, and he has horrible scars, burn scars on a part of his body, and he wants to have heirs for his family, and he doesn't think any women will really want him once they see the damage that has been done to him. And so that leads him to, want to hold Honor to this proxy marriage, okay? Not only to honor his friend that he made during the war, which it kind of worked that, he had, rescued the dad from a situation, and then it was later on that Evan got hurt himself. But he also doesn't want to have to worry about finding a wife now that he's come home a scarred hero. So he does hold Honor to the proxy marriage. And so they just have to finalize it by, saying their vows in front of a priest. But it's like a hand-fast thing, but it was done without her knowledge, right? And he has all of these rules for her. Well, these conditions of you will give me 2 sons, and once we have 2 sons, then you can do whatever you want. You can live whatever life you want. But he makes it clear that, he will be raising his sons. So she's like, okay, not only am I having to give you kids, but then I'm just going to have to fuck off and not get to be their mother. Also, he doesn't want there to be any kissing. And also, he has one other condition too, I can't remember. And she's just so affronted by this guy and how much, not only that he ruined her life before and doesn't even seem to realize it, but also that he would come in making these demands and be so cold-hearted about all of it. And so Honor decides to agree, but she comes up with her own conditions for him. And they have to do with once a week he has to take her out to an event. So basically, take her out on a date. He has to compliment her once, genuinely, every day. And then there is one other one as well from her. Oh, it's to look for her father, I believe. So those are the 3 conditions from her. And so they both agree, they end up married, and they go about trying to make the baby. So yes, this is a baby bargain and a forced marriage. And also, again, or maybe the other condition had to do with, there's a little society she's in with some of her girlfriends too, but I can't remember if that was one of the conditions or looking for her father was. But either way, he does continue to look for her father as well. But as soon as they start with the baby making, of course, they start having feelings for each other, and it's going to be that type of thing. But again, also remember, he doesn't remember that he's the one who hurt her so badly, so that's going to come up at some point. And also Evan is worried or doesn't think that he can ever love anyone. It's that type of thing. Or could she ever really love him? He's this broken and disgusting looking man. And I mean, honestly, Honor thinks that his scars only make him more rugged and attractive, but just have to see that. So yeah, this was my first by Emmy West, and Emmy West is a very small author from what I can see. There aren't many titles she has written yet. Must Love Audio is going to be doing a couple more of hers, and I definitely plan to listen to them. This was a really good one. Again, it was in duet narration. It is still in third person point of view, which I know for me, I like historicals in third person. I've shared that, with last week, how The Gilded Heiress didn't quite work for me because of that. So yeah, I'm really enjoyed this. I do think that it could have been a little stronger in the ending of it. Their romance was okay, but I think it was a bit too easy as well. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too picky, but it was a good time. I was engrossed in it, and so I gave it 4 stars, and it was a 2 on the spice scale. Definitely do recommend. Okay, next up I had a reread, and it was of Hidden Miles by Claire Kingsley. This one I was annotating for Lata. And yeah, this is book 4 in the Miles family. So this one is one that when you read the series, you're looking forward to it. And the fun part about when someone asks me to annotate a book is they can just pick the one that they want to, like that, And this one is about Leo, who is a wounded warrior. Yeah, it was funny because I had 2 of those right in a row. And Leo has actually kind of become agoraphobic and has his PTSD. And so he does the technical stuff for the family winery. He runs the security and the technical side of things. And otherwise, though, he lives in his little cottage there, and he is scarred and he's very ashamed of it. And he hasn't left the estate in years, and it's all just really built up on him. But what he does do is he plays video games, and he actually has a best friend who he's never met, but they have been online gaming together for years. And he calls her Gigs is her call sign online. But her name is Hannah. And then we get introduced to Hannah, and she is in a very bad relationship right now. Her and her cop boyfriend are really on the outs, and she really doesn't understand why she's even still staying with him. But she is a bit timid and she's shy, and he really has domestically abused her and left her in the point where she's scared to leave him. And he'd never truly gotten physical with her before, but it's bad enough that she hasn't been sleeping in the bedroom with him. She sleeps on the couch. He's very disparaging about everything she does, even though he's the one who convinced her to go into working for herself, working from home. And really her only escape herself is when she plays video games with Leo. And there is this chance encounter where she goes to a wedding with her boyfriend. They go to a wedding that's actually held at the Miles winery. Okay. Their vineyard, that's actually what it's called. The vineyard and winery, and they have a hotel and stuff there too. And Leo happens to overhear her speaking to someone, and he knows that this is the girl. This is her. And he sees that she is with someone. And so, she had never lied about that. They're not romantically into each other in the game. Even though he has a huge crush on her. And he finds out she has a partner. And so that's a bit disheartening. And when they talk online next, he tries to work up the guts to tell her, hey, I actually saw you in person, but he doesn't do it. And then there happens to be a night where her boyfriend tries to force her to come back into the bedroom with him again, and is like, you're my girlfriend, you're mooching off of me, and tries to force her back in. Well, luckily, he had thrown something at the wall, and the neighbors call the cops, which is super awkward for our for our heroine's boyfriend, because, again, he is a cop, and it's two guys who show up who know him, okay? And so they obviously feel a bit awkward about it, which fair enough for them. And Hannah doesn't outright say anything that he's done it, but they see the food thrown on the ground, and they're like, dude, there's been 2 different calls about it. I think you need to leave for the night. And so they do take him and get him to leave. Now, they don't arrest him. They don't do that, but they do make him leave. And so Hannah then, she makes kind of a run for it in a way. And she doesn't know where to go. And so she ends up actually going back to the vineyard place, which is just weird. Like, I wrote a few notes on this that, like, there are a few, like, huge logic leaps that happen, but she decided to go back there because she can work from anywhere because of the nature of her job. And she decides that she's going to go there because it felt so peaceful and beautiful there. And so she goes there, and she happens to overhear some stuff where she thinks that Leo actually does live there too. So again, the logic leaps that it takes for both of them to think the other person is like at the, like, that they've seen, like, it's weird. It's weird. But she ends up overhearing about him, and she asks one of his brothers who's there, which of course is Cooper. I forgot how much I love Cooper. He's absolutely unhinged in the best way, because he's heard his brother talk about this chick before too. And in fact, Leo had told Cooper that he saw his online gamer buddy at this wedding. And Cooper was like, dude, tell her. And Leo never got the chance to tell her because of what was happening with her partner. But she goes to his door and knocks on it, and now they've met. And right away, Leo invites her to stay with him and starts talking through with her everything that's happened. So that's all the setup. I just talked a whole bunch, and things then, like, escalate with them. Of course, she tries to go home to get the rest of her stuff, and things really go badly. And that leads to Leo actually leaving the vineyard for the first time in a long time. Then there's also a suspense element that actually has to do with the father of the Meyers family, which that is an ongoing story through all the books, so I won't get into that. But if you want to know that storyline, you'll probably want to start at the beginning, because this is the last book in the series. But I just really enjoyed revisiting this. I gave it 4.5 stars, and it's a 3 on the spice scale. There is actually Shrubari in this book as well. And it's something that Leo actually really likes doing. He's never done it with a partner before, but he'd looked into it, and he's been interested in it. And when he has sex with Hannah, it's actually very helpful for him because he isn't comfortable right away being touched on his scarred flesh and everything. And so being able to tie her up for intimacy, I mean, she loves it, but he also feels safer in their first few interactions when he's able to tie her up. So, yeah. But anyway, very good. Claire Kingsley, this was back when she was still writing a bit more spice in her books, but it's still very emotional and just, like, good stuff to it. Next up, I read an arc of Sweetest Sin by Nikki Ash. And this is the beginning of a new series from her that is, I would say it's Mafia, though, to be honest, I am unclear which branch, as it were, of Mafia it might be. I think it's Russian, but I honestly wrote it's either Russian or Italian. I was not completely sure. But this is a secret baby Mafia light romance, okay? Which you guys know, secret baby in the Mafia is pretty much the only way that I like a secret baby to go. Also, Nikki Ash loves putting pregnancy in her books. Like, she says, like, there's probably a pregnancy in every book of hers. So just know that if you don't like to read that, Nikki Ash probably isn't for you, because she puts it in everything. There's either a single parent or a accidental pregnancy in everything she's written, and I like that. Secret babies are always hard. But again, this is the second one from her for me that she's managed to walk that line for me in a really satisfying way. So there's that. So in this one though, Dominic, at the beginning of the book, he's still under the thumb of his controlling dad, and the father has kind of threatened to give control of the family business to someone other than his sons if they don't, you know, toe the line the way that he wants them to. So that leads him to be, Dominic to have to kind of play the game and everything. And at the beginning of this book, their youngest sister is about to be married off to this absolute disgusting person. And the brothers are like, we're not going to let this happen to our sister. They've had to play along with a lot of things that their dad has done, but they're not going to let this happen to their sister. But our heroine in this, Peyton, she is actually a flight attendant, and she has worked both on commercial flights and some private flights as well. She'll pick those up. She's trying to make as much money as she can for her mother, who needs chemo treatments. Things aren't going super great for her mom. But they run into each other a few times, and finally Dominic convinces her to take a short trip to the Dominican Republic with him. There's a flight that she's going to work, and they're going to spend 24 hours together before they both have to leave. And this is going to be, of course, when our pregnancy takes place here, when it gets initiated. And they have their night together. They're not planning to see one another again. But the next day, before she's woken up, he gets a call that something is going down with his father. And so he does have to leave in a hurry. And he didn't leave a note, but he truly had to run out of there. Like, it was that type of thing. And for her, she's sad he didn't leave a note, but she's also like, this is what we promised. Okay, fine. Now, a couple months later, when things have settled down a bit with I'm trying not to tell you what the situation was because it was good to read it. And he tries to reach out to her, and he's able to get a hold of one of her friends who he tries to get her to let him talk to Peyton, and she refuses, and he doesn't understand why. He thought they had such a great chemistry and everything. Well, I'll just tell you what happened here because it's important to know. It turns out that she has found out she's pregnant. And we don't see this on page. It's something you'll find out later. But I'm going to tell you why. Because again, secret babies I know they're not for everyone. When she tried to get a hold of him, she overheard him killing someone. Okay, so a little bit like a scenario in Lillian Harris I read before. And she knows that he's a part of that. And she had been in an abusive home before. Her mom had been in an abusive marriage. And she doesn't know what he's fully involved in, but she's planning to keep this baby. And she's like, I want nothing to do with that. I don't really know him. Yes, we had great sex, but I'm not going to let that bring me into this world. And so he doesn't know that though. All he knows is that she said, I absolutely want nothing to do with him. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm not going to force it, because he doesn't know that she's pregnant. So fast forward 5 years, and he runs into her on a flight again. And this time it's a private flight that she is working, and she is now a single mom. Now, she, of course, doesn't tell him that right away, but he is really surprised with her reaction to him on this flight, and he just has a weird feeling about it. So when he gets home, he has his brother look into Peyton now and like what's she been up to, what's going on. And the brother is like, hey, she has a child that is this old, and he kind of looks like you. And now Dominic is like, what the hell? And he is very forcefully now going to enter their lives because, yes, he's very attracted to her and he wants her, but to him it's kind of unforgivable that she would keep their kid away from him, though he does understand to a certain degree, but he's like, now that I know, I'm not walking away. And we're not going to be dealing with courts or doing things the legal way. I demand to have my son in my life. And there's our conflict for this book, right? So, yeah, this is the type of secret baby that I am okay with. I thought this was handled really well. I'm really looking forward to other books in the series. Now, what my issues with this were, and I know I'm sorry that I'm nitpicking stuff, but I was enjoying this a lot, and there was just a few things that held me back from it, because this wasn't too long, so that's not going to be the issue. This was just at 300 pages. I thought that was tight, to the point. It was good. My issue was, because this is the beginning of a trilogy, there's a lot of time spent on building up what the whole trilogy is going to be, you know, interconnected standalones, but come on. She's setting up the other siblings that are going to get a book. And there was just a lot of, specifically the sister's story in this one. Most of the trigger warnings that are in this book have to do with stuff happening to other people, including an off-page forced abortion that happened. That actually is though that happens off page and is still absolutely devastating. Of course it is. It was forced upon this one character. It's actually a huge part of the plot because of how it affected some people. So yeah, that I don't know quite how to feel about it. I don't know. So yeah, I ended up at a 4-star and a 4 on the spice scale for this one. It had breath play, breeding kink, and then yeah, the trigger warnings were abortion, not a main character, domestic abuse, not the main character, kidnapping, yes, the main character does that, parental neglect, parental death and illness, and lots of violence. So there you go. All right, next up was an arc of Wildcard by Elsie Silver. And this is the final book in the Rose Hill series. We have just been informed that we will be going to Emerald Lake next. And I feel like she did a good job just kind of giving us a peek at that. I think we all knew that's where she was probably going to go next. But that series will start in 2026. So Wildcard is one that I think we've all really been anticipating, and I won't go too much into this one because it's not out yet, and also I know a lot of you are looking forward to it, and I'm sure I will talk about it much in the future, so I'll hold back a bit, but I did give this one 6 stars. I know. But even like upon reflection, I probably would have given Wild Side a 6-star as well. And it is one of the books I'm planning to reread at the end of the year to see if I do, because I didn't give Wild Side a 6-star because I was like, really, the only books I give 6 stars to are Julia Wolf and Elsie Silver and Kennedy Ryan these days, right? And I was really trying to find other books that do that. But you know what? I don't need to worry about being fair when I'm talking about what my favorites are, right? That's literally what it is. And I was like, I can't give all of her books 6 stars. Like, they can't all be that. But she just does such a good job of making these characters distinct for me and just making them feel alive. And even in this one, like, when there's conflict between the characters, it feels so legitimate and real that none of it feels like manufactured. And when you can't see the hand of the author reaching in to fuck things up for people, because sometimes the author has to do that, right? To give their story a full body, you have to do that. Elsie does such a good job of laying the foundation for what the conflict is going to be that by the time you get to it, you're like, well, yeah, that was going to be a conflict. And then the way her characters deal with it and actually work on it and don't always jump to a breakup because they're having issues, that feels so real. And I couldn't help it. So the barest bones of this one, because like I said, it's a favorite. I'm going to talk about it in other videos coming up, so I don't need to jump the gun right now. But what this one really made me feel is this is an ex-boyfriend's dad, but it's also I saw her first. The age gap isn't too crazy. I think it's only 13 years because the heroine is 27 and the hero is 40. So yes, in his case, just to put it out there, he had a child with a girl in high school that he didn't know that she was pregnant. They were 15. It was one of their each's first times. He was a boy from the wrong side of the tracks and she was from a wealthy family. I'm sure he was a bad boy kink for her at the time. And her family never let her tell him. Okay. So at the beginning of this book, the very beginning, Sebastian is just finding out he has a kid. And the beginning of this book takes place, I think, pretty much before any of the other books in the series, if I'm correct. Yeah, if I'm right, I think it takes place before pretty much any of the others do. Because he's finding out he has a kid. And our heroine, so they meet in an airport. That's what it is. They meet in an airport because there is bad weather and they end up, both of them, stuck there. And she kind of unknowingly helps him out of just a really bad day, right? Because he has just met his son for the first time. Again, this is the first chapter, so I'm not going to go too deep into this one at this point, right? But the setup of how they get this crazy connection is because they're both stuck there. And she's a yoga instructor. She is a curvy girl who people really give her shit for, I guess, leading yoga because she doesn't have a size 2 body. And she's just such a happy, bubbly person. It doesn't mean her life is perfect, but she definitely is in a really good mood. And Sebastian just can't understand why this woman is so happy. And her name is Gwen. But they end up spending the night together, not like spending the night together in this airport, laughing and playing these weird little games of like trying to walk backward on the like walkway to get to the end. Like, it was just really cute. And so by the end of it, she gives him her phone number and he's like, I don't care that I'm older than her. That girl is like, I'm never going to forget her. But then something goes wrong, let's just say, and he never hears from her. And then later on, when he goes to his son's birthday, and this is months later, he goes to his son's birthday party, feels like a complete outsider anyway, because his son does have a dad, his stepdad, who feels like a dad to him. And who is a great guy, like the stepdad. He's pretty cool. The mom and her family are stuck up bitches, basically, though. And the hero's son, he is a NHL player. He is cocky and very like definitely fits in, like he has a good heart, but you can tell he's been raised by these like people too. So Bash goes to his birthday and he gets introduced to his son's girlfriend, who is Gwen. So Gwen is a few years older than the son, because I think the son is turning like 24, 25 and Gwen is 27, like we said. But she wasn't dating this guy when she first met Sebastian, and she'd never heard from him. And now he's showing up, and this is the son that he had, like, told her about, but she couldn't have known that and everything. And they find out that something happened that kept them from being able to meet up afterwards. And now she's dating his son. And then we'll just end that. We skip ahead a few more months, and she's actually coming to Rose Hill to stay and she becomes a yoga teacher there. And now Sebastian and her are in the same town, and that is the setup of this story. Which, if you remember in Wildside, there's a couple scenes in Wildside that you'll see in this one, and now you're seeing them from the point of view of Gwen and Bash and what was going on with them. So yeah, I'm not going to say anymore. I won't go into every detail of why this one was a 6 stars yet, but it is. And as I said, Elsie Silver makes all of her characters feel so distinct and so, like, she just moves me so much with the stories that she tells. And this couple just felt so real, and the issues that they work through together and the love that they have for each other and the community around them. And there's just so many things that are wonderful about an Elsie Silver book. And so, yeah, it's 6 stars. It's a 3 on the spice scale. Yeah, I loved it. I'll just stop there. I won't go any more into it until it's been a little bit, because yeah, this comes out on Tuesday. And I can't wait to hear what everybody else thinks about it too. So, yeah. Okay, and the final book that I finished was Saving the Rain by Elliot Rose. This is the romance between Casey Wilder and Zeke Rainier, or Rain as he goes by. And Rain is actually the older stepbrother to Casey. So Casey is the son of, I think it's Chase Wilder, I think is his dad's name, if I'm remembering right, from book 1. And that one was an ex-boyfriend's dad, because at one point, Casey had actually dated the girl in that one. And he was actually the impetus for how those two, like, end up stuck together on Crimson Ridge in the first book and everything. And this one is about, kind of like in the beginning, about the rivalry between these two stepbrothers who are both in the Bronx, bareback bronc riding circuit. And we don't quite understand where all of the hatred comes from until we start having some of these flashbacks where we see how crappy Rain treated Casey. Now, once we start getting a fuller picture, you'll understand that there was actually a lot that Rain was doing to protect Casey from his dad. Now, this is Rain's dad, who was Casey's stepdad, because Rain's dad married Casey's mom, and they were both pretty messed up. And Rain is, I think, like 6 years older than Casey. So when Casey was still just like 11, 12, 13, Rain, you know, was an older teenager and then a young adult. And he stuck around home longer than he would have to try to protect Casey from his dad. But eventually, you know, Rain tried to put distance between him and Casey because he thought it would be easier to leave if he didn't care for Casey. But Casey never saw that part of the struggle that Rain had. Rain kept a lot of that inside. And on the outside, he treated Casey like shit, okay? And one of the things that bothered me in the first half of this book is that Casey was a younger child than Rain. Now, should Rain have had to grow up as fast as he did? No. But no matter what beatings or physical things Rain was taking to protect Casey, he still made Casey feel like shit and feel inferior, whatever the internal feelings Rain had. And that was something that really bothered me throughout the first half of this book. I really didn't care for Rain at all. I really didn't. Like, he's this bad boy, cowboy, who Casey is starting to feel attracted to and is like, this is wrong, I shouldn't feel this for my stepbrother and all this. And yeah, I get why Rain would seem extremely attractive and someone you want to take a bite out of. Like, believe me, I get it. But to me, it doesn't completely excuse how he treated him. And I wish we had dug a little deeper into that and why he treated him that way. I don't know. Some people might feel different, but it was just really hard to swallow for me. And then once things turned sexual, of course, I really loved how Rain was with him and how he really pushed Casey to go for what he wanted. And when Casey ends up actually getting injured and he isn't going to be able to compete anymore, we find out more about, let's say, the inner pain and the inner turmoil there and everything. As always, I think this one was so long, but that's just Elliot Rose at this point. There are, once they start having sex, there are like, that's why I list these as erotic romance. This whole series is erotic cowboy romance to me, because their relationship is really pushed by the sexual the whole way through. And that is totally fine, right? But even in an erotic romance, you can overdo how many times we're fucking each other and not talking about things, you know? And this is just another case of like, this book took me 10 days to get through, because that first half I was really struggling with. As I said, I didn't really care about Rain. I thought he was cruel and, he can have whatever reasons he wants, but he never fully explained those to Casey. He just started fucking Casey's brains out, and Casey became so dick drunk that he was just ready to make a go of it with him, you know? And I feel like we didn't really work through that. That doesn't change that Rain becomes very caring and protective over him, and yes, there was some very swoony stuff there, but it still just didn't ring completely true to me that we'd worked through everything that we should have. So, yeah. And then when we get to the third act, Elliot Rose does the same thing she's done in every single one of these books. Her third act plays the same in every single one. Like, I'm so sick of that. Find a different way to do your third act conflict, okay? Like, just, they don't all have to be the same, okay? Like, I think the only one that really changed it up to me was like Braving the Storm, because I think Briar is that heroine's name. I feel like she's the only one who had like the best reason for how she played out the third act. But anyway, I did give this one 4 stars still. It was an arc. I think I probably rounded up to that. I want to love an MM cowboy anytime it shows up, okay? I'll tell you that. And I'm sure I will find situations to recommend this book for specific things in it. You know, I liked how there wasn't any like homophobia or any resistance in that side of it. It all more had to do with the taboo of them being stepbrothers and Casey trying to deal with that, and also his other insecurities. So like, that's good. But I don't know, I never fully forgave Rain, because I feel like he didn't earn that. It was just like, once Casey finds out that he was so grumpy because he was taking beatings for him, it's just like, oh, okay, that was a good enough reason. And I'm like, huh? That's a good enough reason? I'm confused. So, yeah. But anyway, those are the books that I read in this last week. Yeah, really, really enjoyed quite a few of these. Found another 6-star read finally. Yay! And yes, it's another Elsie Silver. What do you want from me? Okay, what do you want from me? I try, okay? There's a certain type of feel that her books give me, you know? Don't forget that this upcoming weekend is the Craftathon. So all weekend long, there's going to be live shows happening. If you didn't watch my announcement video for that, I will link it up here. You can definitely read with us during that. There's no rules to this, okay? The point is there's going to be live shows going on Friday from noon Central Time is when I'll be starting them off. And there are sprints literally going until 11 o'clock that night. And then on Saturday, there's sprints going from 8 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. And then on Sunday, we'll round it off going from noon to 5 p.m. So bring your crafts, bring your journaling, bring your organization you need to do, and come hang out with us. I have a full list of that is linked in on my community page and on that announcement video. There is still room for people to join as guests if you'd like to, but you're always welcome to come watch us. And yeah, thank you to the new supporters who joined, and I hope you all have a wonderful